Hello, and you are all very welcome to Social Impact Ireland's 2020 conference, Business But Better. My name is Sonya Lennon, and I am the glue that will hold together all the wonderful layers of today's event. Today, Social Impact Ireland has brought together key stakeholders, the pillars that allow social enterprise to thrive in Ireland. The founders, the funders, the policymakers, to connect and hear from thought leaders on key topics relevant to the growth of social entrepreneurship in Ireland. Today's lineup includes introductory remarks on social protection, community and rural development from Minister Heather Humphreys, a keynote address from Andrew Forde, Head of Rural Strategy and Social Enterprise, two lively panel discussions, and of course our guest speaker, Dr. Briga Hines. But it's only appropriate that to kick things off, I invite to the stage Ayman, CEO of Social Impact Ireland.
On behalf of Social Impact Ireland, can I welcome you to today's event. These are quite extraordinary times that we are living in, probably the most disruptive and turbulent that we've ever encountered, certainly in a generation or more. COVID-19 is indeed a human tragedy that has impacted us, but it is also one that has driven lots of damage internally into our own economy and the social fabric that is there. Eventually, though, that tragedy will pass and COVID will be behind us, and then we will be tasked with the job of rebuilding society and economy, hopefully in a better way. What we hope to do today is actually gain some insights from people with expertise in the social space as to how we might best actually do that. First, we just need to reflect slightly on the impact it has actually had on people in the last while. For some, such as Courtney in Foodshare in Tralee or Linda in St. Munchin's Community Centre in Limerick, they have actually risen completely to the task that was dumped upon them, trebling their output and more to deal with the challenge that was put on their services. For others, it has been the exact opposite. They've actually found that the years of work that they've put in to achieve impact in ways that were meaningful to them has simply been stopped dead. For some, they know that they probably will not restart. Equally, though, people have also, like Claire in WePlay, have pivoted their businesses completely in response to that tragedy, taking what was essentially an in-person service and converting it into an online approach that both met the needs of the COVID-19 pandemic, plus also actually opened up new avenues for the future. And indeed, for many of the people during lockdown, it was an opportunity to actually rethink where they were and what they wanted to do with their lives. And we have seen an explosion of interest in doing things that have more purpose for them in the future. And this is exemplified by the incubator program we are running with our partners, Innovate Communities in Dublin next week, with the wide spectrum of challenges that people are set up to that maybe they wouldn't have thought of a year ago. So that is before us, that is the sector that we're dealing with, and then we need to look to see how that will actually develop over the next future. When putting this event together, we first thought that, okay, maybe we should talk a bit about it, but then we said, who are we to talk about it? It would be far better if we actually talk to the people that will be able to give us insights into what best way to actually build this. So the rest of the day is structured actually into three of the critical audiences for that. The first consists of policymakers, educators, support agencies, and the commercial sector who have a big role to play in the development of a vibrant social enterprise sector. After that, Briga Hines will take us through the role of research, the insights that have been gained from reports that we will be publishing today in collaboration with Briga. It gives us insights into the challenges the sector face and ways of actually moving forward to the advancement of the whole sector. And finally, but actually most importantly, we will have a panel discussion with three people from the social enterprise space themselves. Above all, we should always remember that no matter what we might think we do in terms of supporting social enterprise, impact only occurs through people that actually run social enterprises and take the challenge up and meet that. So we are in support of them. It is what they can achieve is that the real impact, and our job should be focused on their needs. So our last group is a discussion group among three such entrepreneurs in terms of the challenges that they meet and things that would actually assist them in the future. So our plan for today really is for you all to sit back and just listen to people in terms of their view, so that we can all sort of maybe gain further insight into what may actually be of benefit to us in the future. Above all is one that we believe that it is the collaboration and the connectivity across these groups, that coherently we can all work together, that will actually advance it to the benefit of all. So with that, let's just sit back and enjoy the conversation that follows. And with that, I'll hand you back to your guide for the day, Sonya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayman, for that vital reminder of the power of social enterprise to redesign and rebuild our society in this great country of Ireland. Entrepreneurs are, by their nature, indefatigable, unknockdownable, and fueled by a passion to create a better and more just way of living. The Irish government acknowledged this power, and over the last 3 years has formally supported the development and growth of social enterprises under the Department of Social Protection, Community, Rural Development and the Islands. I would now like to introduce the Minister charged with this portfolio, Heather Humphreys, to present her introductory remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to speak to you this morning to mark the launch of Social Impact Ireland, formerly the Irish Social Business Campus. Firstly, I want to recognise the work of the team in recent years under the leadership of your CEO, Ayman Ryan. I know that the organisation has carried out important work supporting social enterprises and entrepreneurs right across the country. As Minister with responsibility for the National Social Enterprise Policy, I believe the role of social enterprise is more important than ever as we recover from the impact of COVID-19, and this is an area that I have a keen interest in. In recent months, social enterprises have had to make changes in order to meet the challenges posed by the pandemic, but they've also played an integral role in supporting communities during an extremely difficult period. As we look towards 2021, I believe there is now significant potential for social enterprises to make a real contribution to the national recovery, and I want to see Ireland become a global leader in social enterprise. Our policy, launched just over 1 year ago, was the first in the history of the state, and it aims to help social enterprises to grow in terms of scale and impact. I know Andrew Forde from the department will address you shortly and will give you further information on what my department is doing and planning for social enterprise. Before I conclude, I want to emphasise that we will only achieve strong social enterprise if we all work together. On that note, let me congratulate you again and wish you every success with this new chapter for Social Impact Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for those very insightful and heartfelt remarks. All at Social Impact Ireland are delighted to have your support. I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, who is very kindly with us in real time, Principal Officer, Rural Strategy and Social Enterprise Unit, Andrew Forde.
I'm really delighted to have been invited to speak to you this morning on occasion of the launch of Social Impact Ireland. Thanks to Adrienne, Ayman and all of the colleagues at Social Impact Ireland for the invitation. I do have the privilege of leading the Irish government's efforts to develop a social enterprise and for it to become the business model of the future in this country. I've seen the excellent work of the ISBC over the past number of years in supporting social enterprises to grow not only in the mid and the southwest, but also further afield. So I'm really delighted to be part of this landmark moment for that organisation, or the new organisation, Social Impact Ireland. The transformation into Social Impact Ireland is really a clear articulation of its ambition to cast the net wider, to enhance collaboration and partnerships nationally, and to play an even stronger part in Ireland's national social enterprise movement. Our shared purpose is to make Ireland a more inclusive, a more sustainable place for everyone, and social enterprises can play a really critical role in that regard. But in my view, we've reached a critical point of inflection. We're living through profoundly difficult times. Large numbers of people are out of work. As of September, the adjusted unemployment rate was 14.7%, up from 4.9% in February. A recent Chambers Ireland survey found that on average businesses envisage that turnover will be at least 30% less than this time of last year. It may be significantly more for many others. For many social enterprises, the impact on turnover may be even greater still, even though ironically they are more in demand than ever, and many are operating really on the front line of the response. Many businesses, including micro businesses, SMEs, they've had to close their doors, and many may not open, many may not reopen. But while we have to acknowledge that that's the current reality, we also have to recognize that the response to it is really very much in our hands. We don't have to accept an outcome where we just go back to business as usual. We have an opportunity now to reimagine the future economy, to one that gives more emphasis on balanced regional development, on strengthening the domestic market, and crucially towards a greener, more inclusive, more sustainable economy and society. An economy that works for society as opposed to the other way around. An economy that tackles legacy challenges and embraces all the new opportunities. So with that in mind, the topic of today's launch, I think, is a really pertinent one. Business but better, the future of social enterprises. A social enterprise, of course, is a business that works primarily to improve the lives of people. The business of social enterprise is social good. Social enterprises, they operate in all areas of Ireland's social and economic life, charging for services and goods that they provide, but they distinguish themselves obviously from commercial businesses by the fact that profits are reinvested to deliver their mission to communities. They're rapidly gaining prominence in this country, and they present significant opportunities for further growth, particularly in supporting work integration or work reintegration, as well as in the green, the circular economies. A number of the larger social enterprises, maybe it's little known, but a number of the larger social enterprises have been supported by Enterprise Ireland. And I'm delighted to see Julie on the events today as well, including, for instance, 𝐒𝐡𝐞. But since the public health emergency, they've really come into their own, I think. Many social enterprises have significantly stepped up or diversified their activities to adapt to local needs, shortening supply chains for goods and services. Some have engaged in food distribution, others diversified into the manufacture of PPE, others still have adapted digital solutions to continue to provide their supports and their services. Social enterprises can really be a game changer for job creation, for economic growth, and for social enterprise in equal measure, and not one above the other. But don't take my word for it this morning. Let's just look internationally at what the situation is. The social enterprise business model has been proven the world over. The OECD came out recently with a report in August, which I would encourage people to read, that said that social enterprises can develop a much larger role in the post-COVID context and can help to reshape the economy by promoting an inclusive and sustainable economic model. It also predicts the social enterprise can inspire a broader sense of purpose in the market economy, which itself can have positive impacts. The European Commission has placed social enterprise development at the heart of its new mandate, and DG Employment recognises that social enterprises are not only good at creating jobs, but they're experts at creating jobs for the most marginalised. And just so we get a sense of the scale, what we're talking about here, there are 2.8 million social enterprises in the EU-wide, providing 13.6 million jobs, which represents 8% of the GDP of the EU. So this is not an incidental sector. If adequately supported, it has significant potential to grow and can be transformational for society at the same time. The EU also recognises that social enterprises make a key contribution to targets within the European pillar for social rights by ensuring fair access to labour markets or enabling citizens to participate in society. So it's no accident that the Commissioner with responsibility for social enterprise is Nicola Schmid, the Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights. Next year, the European Commission will be developing an action plan on the social economy, and Ireland intends to significantly contribute to that process. The International Labour Organization as well is placing increasing emphasis on opportunities in the social economy, and in particular for trading social cooperatives. Micro energy generation is one area where there's likely to be a significant uptick in social enterprise activity in Ireland in the future under those kinds of forms of business. The UN also recognises the critical significance of social enterprise, and in 2021 looks set to adopt a UN General Assembly resolution which will specifically link social enterprise to the fulfilment of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And that, from my point of view, is entirely logical, given that social enterprises are natural SDG champions. It's actually impossible, in my view, to be a social enterprise without having one or more of the SDGs as part of your DNA. So this is a truly global business and impact movement. And the fact that key intergovernmental organizations responsible for economic and social development are increasingly prioritizing social enterprise is a very important signal to all of us here in government and in society. Ireland says, and we always consider ourselves to be an island at the heart of the world. We can benefit from the experience of others, but still be true to our own experience of social enterprise, and indeed share those learnings. Coming back to the policy framework, many of you will be aware that the National Social Enterprise Policy was the first of its kind, as the Minister said. It seeks to grow social enterprise both in terms of scale and impact by creating an enabling ecosystem. The publication of the policy was a watershed moment for the sector, and it was a ground-up movement. The policy was driven by social enterprises. It contains your words, those of you working in, with, and for social enterprise. The policy situates social enterprise in Ireland as part of a broader entrepreneurship ecosystem. And it recognises a symbiotic relationship between enterprise, innovation, and inclusion. And as we move to recovery, I think we need to draw those linkages out even further. So the policy is focused then around three key objectives. First of all, to build awareness, to grow and to strengthen social enterprise, and the third pillar is to achieve greater policy alignment. And it's based on an understanding and a recognition that social enterprises face many serious challenges: identity, markets, skills, funding, financing, governance, insurance, staff well-being, and so on. Many of them are replicated in commercial business, but there are specificities that social enterprises face that need to be also tackled in a more deliberate and tailored way. The policy sets out 26 commitments on the part of government to address these challenges and to increase the scale and the impact of social enterprise up to 2022. And over the past year, in partnership with social enterprise stakeholders, we've achieved a lot. We've invested more than 50 million euros annually on social enterprises through the Community Services Programme, the Social Inclusion Programme, LEADER, the Social Enterprise Development Fund, the Dormant Accounts Funds, and so on. And this was complemented recently by the Stability Scheme and Innovate Together schemes in response to the COVID-19 crisis. And not to mention, of course, the broader business supports under the auspices of local enterprise offices, for example, wherever that's appropriate. Our training and mentoring scheme is supporting 13 different programs throughout the country to enhance the capacities of hundreds of social enterprises. Our partnership with Foróige has seen the inclusion of social enterprise modules in the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship program. Our new network of higher education institutions is creating an opportunity for greater cohesion between the third level sector, which is so important in terms of developing social enterprise from the point of view of teaching, research, and indeed community engagement. We're supporting an Irish Research Council postdoctoral fellowship on social enterprise to try to understand the impact of it in a more comprehensive way. We facilitate national networking events. We're working with the Office of Government Procurement around how we can open up public procurement opportunities, because the government is committed to significantly enhancing these opportunities. And just on that point, we'll be running a series of procurement trainings and webinars later in November and December on this very question. The issue of legal status is a question for some social enterprises. Legal form is sometimes a bit bamboozling for new social enterprises to choose which is the best way to go. And in recognition of this, a new legal form guide will be launched this month. And a research study is now underway to try to determine what are the specific challenges that are linked to legal form, and how can the government potentially move forward to address some of those challenges. We've worked with Bonenfant on data collection, and we're looking very seriously into running a comprehensive national census to determine the scale and scope of the sector in 2021. Separately, Ireland's social finance leaders, Clan and Community Finance Ireland, via the Social Finance Foundation, have benefited from a new EU guarantee scheme which facilitates access to finance. We've developed an all-Ireland partnership on social enterprise and recognise the value of a North-South relationship. And later this month, we'll be holding our second virtual national conference on social enterprise on the 19th of November, which you're all very welcome to attend, and information will be circulated online about that. But by far the highest priority for us for now is to tackle the challenge of understanding. Until we crack that nut, we will never really fully realise the potential of social enterprise. I'll say it again, social enterprises are businesses. Yes, they're values-based. Yes, they're deeply embedded in communities. They're often born out of a specific social or environmental need, but they are businesses. Therefore, they're an integral part of Ireland's entrepreneurship ecosystem. And to be a successful business and to be equally impactful for society, they need to be true to their purpose, and in tandem, they need also to have access to mainstream business supports, just like other businesses. This is why we're focusing so intensively on developing a social enterprise awareness strategy at present, which is going to be rolled out in the coming months to help to clarify these points. The aim is to bring the language of social enterprise into the mainstream public consciousness. We all have a role, I think, to play in that regard as well. And I want to challenge everybody who's on this call today to think about how can you support that effort. Discuss social enterprise, support and promote social enterprise. If you run a social enterprise, indicate it on your websites. If you work for an enterprise agency, think about how social enterprises can be targeted and supported more readily. If you're from a local authority, think about how social enterprise can feature in future economic planning exercises. If you're a teacher, think about how you can introduce it into your classes. If you're a journalist, do a feature on it. We all can play a role in shaping the narrative, and I think we all have a duty to do it. So that's just a brief flavour of what's been happening. But there's still so much more to do. And we recognise that, and we're committed to doing it. But we'll only achieve a world-class social enterprise ecosystem in this country through a whole-of-government approach, as well as meaningful external collaboration and partnerships. And from that perspective, the government is committed to developing a framework for social enterprise, enhancing a movement and narrative around social enterprise, shaping a national dialogue with social enterprise, transforming the economy and society through social enterprise. And we have to view the current crisis, I think it's been said already, as an opportunity to shape a more sustainable and a better future. The rollout of the National Broadband Plan and the emergence of the now fairly extensive network of digital and remote working hubs throughout Ireland, including in rural Ireland in particular, I think presents a particular enabler for social enterprise in rural areas. Many of these digital hubs in rural areas are actually social enterprises themselves. For instance, Ludgate and Skibbereen, which Adrian knows fairly well. For all of these reasons, Social Impact Ireland's renewed aspirations for growth are just so important and appreciated. The timing of this transformation could not be better. The scale of the challenges that are facing society are significant. Jobs, climate, biodiversity, equality, cohesion. We need to transform and we need to harness the potential of social enterprise to address those challenges. Ireland's economy and its recovery will be assessed by how sustainable, how inclusive, and how innovative it is. And we shouldn't be just aspiring for recovery. Let's shift the paradigm. Let's work together for a better form of business that boosts job creation and innovation, fosters inclusion, and addresses some of society's greatest challenges. So, in conclusion, I very much look forward to collaborating with Social Impact Ireland in the future, as I do with all other organisations and that are seeking to develop social enterprise in this country and to help it to contribute to Ireland's economic and social recovery. And on that note, I want to just congratulate you again and wish you every success in the new chapter of Social Impact Ireland. Thanks very much for your attention, and I'll hand now back to Sonya.
Thank you, Andrew, for your commitment and daily support of this sector. A huge amount happening. Encouraging to think that social enterprise is the business model for the future, and also kind of brilliant to think that internationally the good guys are in the winner's enclosure. I would now like to introduce the first panel, Business But Better, and our speakers and special guests. Professor Kerstin May, President of University of Limerick, Julie Sinnamon, CEO of Enterprise Ireland, Sarah Miller, Chief Executive of Rediscovery Centre, and Liam O'Brien, Head of Strategy and External Affairs at Vodafone. You are all very welcome here today, and we have a fantastic audience who are tuning in live, and they have made their presence known by feeding in some questions in advance, so we will be addressing some of those. Such a great grouping of people on this panel to look at all the diverse and multiple stakeholdings of the sector of social enterprise. Liam, I'm going to come to you first as a representative of private enterprise. How critical is a thriving social enterprise sector within a modern, robust economy for Ireland?
Yeah, good morning, Sonia, and good morning, everyone. Listen, I think the challenges that are faced by society and the economy are numerous and varied. And we firmly believe that all participants have a role to play in overcoming those, not just governments and not just citizens, but also business. I think progressive commercial organisations like my own have recognised that we all need to move beyond just the financial imperative, and that we are also accountable for broader socio-economic outcomes. Ultimately, we all want a healthy, sustainable, resilient society that benefits everybody. And here in Vodafone, we've moved from traditional, what I would have called CSR-led activities, maybe a decade or two ago. Really now to the point where sustainable business and societal outcomes are embedded as part of our company priorities. And we use the Sustainable Development Goals to inform that. And in fact, last year we were recognised by the Irish government as one of their 12 SDG champions. So, we say, and my boss, Anna Leary, often says, we do believe that doing good and doing good business are compatible. And they're not contradictory goals for a business. If anything, it supports it. We know that our stakeholders find these important. So, it's important to our employees, it's important to our customers, it's important to our partners and our suppliers, and therefore it's important to our shareholders as well. So I don't think it's contradictory to be able to both do good and to do good business. But of course, sustainable enterprises or social enterprises have known this for many years. I think commercial organizations like ourselves are maybe just catching up. So, social enterprises have an enormous role to play in society. I think it's very important in terms of job creation, overcoming divides which are prevalent in society, whether that's skills divides, age divides, background or geography, and community development. I think it's also very reflective of the diversity in our society. So social enterprises bring diversity, they bring innovation, therefore by definition they bring new ideas, and they create, I think, better outcomes as well, and create new business that weren't before possible. And lastly, I think it's also about creating a more resilient and inclusive society. Because I think we've got a lot of challenges that we're facing now, and we've got a lot of challenges that we're facing into the future. And I think the social enterprises, in a way, can actually be role models for organizations like ourselves and commercial organizations, really setting the standard for what good looks like.
And can I ask you, are there two-way learnings in that alignment then?
I think so, very much. I think you really see these two spheres overlapping and coming together over the last number of years. I think commercial organizations are becoming more purposeful, more aware and conscious of their societal obligations. I think therefore we have a lot to learn in that regard, and we're always looking for partner organizations that we can work with who can help us as we move into that area. I think obviously it's important that we focus on areas of shared value and shared priority, but definitely there's an opportunity for us all to collaborate. We definitely don't know everything in the commercial sector, and we need support.
Julie, at Enterprise Ireland, you fuel the growth of business. Why is the parallel growth of social enterprise so important to Irish society?
Well, Sonia, and good morning to everybody. Delighted to join you. I would see the critical role of social enterprise, both from an Enterprise Ireland perspective, but also I'm a board member of Social Entrepreneurs Ireland. And to me, the social entrepreneurs that I have ever been exposed to. They see a burning issue, a social problem. Many of them are experiencing it firsthand. They're passionate about it. They're driven to do something about it. And really, it is about solving Ireland's social problems. And they have an urgency. And, you know, eventually social problems may get solved. But the social enterprise sector can actually really tackle those problems and do something about it in a really faster way. And I think that's why it's massively important. And there's a lot of support organisations, and congratulations to Social Impact Ireland because of the role they played in Enterprise Ireland. We're delighted to have supported them through the Regional Enterprise Development Fund. But it is about tackling the problems problem by problem and really making this country a better place for all of us to live in.
Sarah, you live, thank you, Julie, you live social enterprise every day through the Rediscovery project. So you are our social entrepreneur on the panel today. What are the daily challenges? And in your opinion, how can we best support you and your mission?
Well, I suppose, firstly, thank you very much for asking me here today. I suppose we're facing huge challenges within society today, and social enterprises have a huge contribution to play. They already do. Our speakers previously spoke about the impact and the potential of social enterprises. And I suppose for us, it's really positive to see developments in social policy. It's really encouraging, and we've waited for it for a long time. So we're all very happy to see that support. It is much needed. We do, and we will continue to address serious social issues in Ireland. We create the jobs and we strengthen the communities in which we work. I guess in terms of the challenges, you know, it's easy for me to point to climate issues and to talk about the huge impact that social enterprises can play. You know, we're going to have to ensure that a transition to a low carbon society is just, and that it's achievable by all, and that it is inclusive of all. And that's a serious challenge, you know, for us to be able to bring everybody with us on that journey. It's that proposes some real serious challenges that we're going to have to address. It's like one that we've never faced before. And, you know, we're talking about monumental shift here in the way that we work and the way that we live. And I think that's going to be a challenge. How do we bring everyone along with us on that journey? How do we make sure that businesses all work together to support a stronger society? I think is going to be a challenge for a social enterprise. You know, we're well equipped to move quickly. We've been in difficult situations before. Every day we face serious challenges about how to keep our businesses afloat. So we know, you know, the work that has to be done. I think we will have to, you know, try to compete on a level playing field, which is very difficult for social enterprise because our business isn't just about keeping afloat, it's about making serious social impact. And therefore, I think there will have to be some leveling of that playing field. So, for example, if you take the climate, you know, we compete in the whole reuse and repair sector. We're competing with new products that are really cheap. You know, they're on the market and they can be bought for buttons. You know this, Sonia, in the fashion industry. It's very difficult to compete with that on an environmental playing field. So there has to be some way of internalizing the environmental impacts of those companies that are able to put cheap products in the market. And I think that's a serious challenge that we're facing, and one that I think social enterprises will have to address along with government policy, because it's not something we can do on our own.
And I suppose COVID gives us an opportunity, I suppose, to reassess our consumer decisions and how we interact with the world around us. Kerstin, as a representative, I suppose, of higher education and academia, you're seeing these challenges. How do we support this sector?
Hello, everyone. Sonia, thank you for enabling me to be on the panel today. I think there are a number of challenges that we are facing. First of all, it's the value proposition that education, and I particularly will talk about higher education, is making. So the alignment of universities such as UL to the UN sustainability goals, the incorporation of the sustainability goals into the curriculum, I think very much articulates the need to develop critically engaged citizens. And that, I think, lays the ground for the value, seeing and accepting the value of social enterprise across the institution, and for an engagement in and through communities. Secondly, I think it is how we educate our students. How do we instill an entrepreneurial mindset? How do we develop self-determined learners? I think that throws up huge challenges. On the one hand, to overcome the siloization of education, i.e. the focus on subject areas. They are important, disciplines are important, but we have to create a space for social entrepreneurship to bring together the subject, business knowledge, technology knowledge in our third level education, and a space for students to experiment, for instance, setting up social entrepreneurial ventures in and with and through communities, and to recognize that failure might be part of that. So how do we assess failure and support the learning from failure in our curriculum? And how do we build on all the voluntary activities that are already in place based on the IUA Campus Engage and university initiatives in UL? We generate well over 30,000 hours of voluntary contributions through our students, through the Presence Volunteer Award every year. So how can we bring formal and informal education, so to speak, together and recognize the more informal voluntary engagement in the awards that we give to our students? Thirdly, it is access to education. Our practices change rapidly through the technology advances and so on. And social enterprises have to adjust to these new working practices. That means they need to be able to engage in re-upskilling. But at the moment, to engage in that, it is relatively expensive for businesses that are already, pretty squeezed. So how can we enable access to education for social enterprises that is more available? And fourthly, and Andrew talked about that earlier, universities, third level institutions offer a huge resource for research and knowledge exchange. And I think that should be harnessed for social enterprises in terms of researching on best practice locally, regionally, nationally, globally, and share that knowledge across the network of social enterprises to support networking, to create platforms with tools and resources that are easily accessible, and to create a dialogue. And the University of Limerick, for instance, has joined the Knowledge for Change UNESCO endorsed global hub to educate community mentors. And by doing that, and by collaborating with BNEST, for instance, we are hoping that we proactively can stimulate the next generations of social entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. A really clear strategy and action plan, I suppose. I can't help thinking while I listen to you that if we wait until the higher education level, we're perhaps waiting too late, that a lot of what you have discussed could be very applicable into early years learning as well. Liam, how has COVID-19 and this crisis, and we know that there are opportunities in crisis, how has it altered your thinking around social enterprise and the whole sector in terms of the contribution, the focus, the future, the opportunities, I suppose?
Yeah, listen, it's a big question, and I don't think we know all the answers to it yet. I think that what it has done for me, definitely, it's exposed inequalities and vulnerabilities in society. Maybe that were there already, but maybe we just weren't as alert to them as we are now. Whether that's access to critical services like healthcare, whether it's gender inequality, whether it's economic vulnerability, critical skills. Andrew mentioned earlier on, connectivity, something obviously close to our heart. I think COVID definitely has exposed those vulnerabilities, really, really strongly. And I think I think we ought to be incredibly humble at how we have responded as a society and adapted and come together. I think though it's also, a wake-up call for us as a society, but just how vulnerable we are. I think every generation sort of thinks they're impenetrable, but every generation gets exposed. And I think this has really exposed us. And for all our technological advancements over the last decades, we are still incredibly exposed by a tiny virus. So I think, we all need to work together to build a sustainable, resilient society into the future. And I think the social enterprises have been an important part of how we have reacted to COVID. Actually, I think a lot of them have stood up and actually really come to their own during the last number of months. I think they'll even be more important into the future. I would say as well, it probably also should remind us that there are other, without being maybe too hyperbolic, but other existential threats as well facing the planet. And COVID obviously was very much in sharp relief, but I think people have already mentioned climate change. I think that's possibly, and I know it's been said by the UN recently, possibly even a bigger challenge to the planet. But unfortunately, we're not reacting maybe as we should be. So I think for me, COVID as well maybe helps us be alert to that and to be aware of that other threats that we're facing. And lastly, I think for me, it's also looking at the positive. It's pretty shown us just what's possible in society when we have to overcome challenges. And I think this is something we all can take inspiration from, whether you're a commercial organization or a social enterprise. But the fact that we're running this conference digitally, in Vodafone, we have 100,000 people across the globe working at home, running our global organization. We have universities delivering programs online and making things accessible, maybe people who were not accessible before. So I think in a way that should maybe increase our level of ambition and inspiration of actually what is possible. I think social enterprises in that regard, I think should take real comfort from that.
Thank you, Liam. Sarah, I know I founded 2 social enterprises myself, and I know the initial challenge for me was that I didn't have a business background. I was coming at it from a sort of a blank canvas. And there's a lot of social entrepreneurs in that bracket, I think. What message would you send to somebody who's interested in exploring this as a business option?
Well, I suppose, first of all, people running social enterprises, they're in a very privileged position. I'm sure you'd agree with me, Sonia. You get to go to work every day to do something that you love, that you're passionate about, and that truly addresses an issue that you believe in. And I think that's why we all start. That's where it comes from. We've seen over the past few months, more and more people, certainly we run a circular economy academy, and more people are coming to us with ideas saying, I have an idea and I want to do something. And you understand that people are seeking out a meaning, and it's wonderful. I think we're going to see some great post-COVID social enterprises popping up around the country. My advice, I suppose, to someone setting up is that if you feel passionately about something and you see a solution, then let's just go and do it. But I suppose it's not for the faint-hearted. So I think you need to ask yourself, are you equipped to set up a business? It is a business. So if you're not equipped and you don't have those skills, then you surround yourself with people who are able to do that, or reach out to the supports that are there to support social enterprise development. Expect to lose sleep. Expect to have to fight your corner every day. Expect to have to spend your days filling out numerous application forms and funding proposals and submissions, and expect that you will face monumental challenges in keeping your business afloat. But I guess the upside of that is that at the end of the day, you will be having a positive impact, and that all of that hard labor and all of that hard work, real impact on the people that you work with and the communities that you're working with, and that you will, continue to be in that privileged position where you can do that. I think that's probably it.
It's worth it. It's worth the pain. We're going to take a question from the audience now. And Julie, I'm going to put this to you. Do you think that public tenders should include a social clause to encourage engagement with social enterprise by the commercial sector?
A very good question. Yes, I actually think that public policy has a critical role in terms of getting access to significant contracts for people, and government can really walk the talk and do things which can make it easier. So absolutely, I would say that those are things that in some other countries are successful, and I think that we should be, and it's fantastic now to have the focus in the department on this, and that I think the policy issues are really important in terms of government really putting the weight behind the sector and making life easier for them. So absolutely, I would fully endorse that.
And do you think that those, the policy and the new supports are likely to evolve into more tangible supports for the sector under Enterprise Ireland?
Well, first of all, Enterprise Ireland has supported a number of social enterprises, and we're obviously looking at companies that are export focused. So the immediate focus isn't on, the domestically focused. So if you take a company like FoodCloud, perfect example, wasn't a new problem, but what they brought was a really innovative solution to it. It has had a massive impact in Ireland, but they are taking that model and internationalizing it, and Enterprise Ireland will get involved. But I do think that there is, through the local enterprise office, through the other organizations that are there to help social enterprise, there's lots of support, and more can be done. I mean, Sarah talks about with passion about the difference that she can make every day of the week, and lots of enterprises, in my experience, in the not social enterprise area, in the commercial side, I mean, the biggest issue is building that team, and there's lots of supports available to do that. In some other countries, there's probably less of a siloed approach. I've been in sort of enterprise centers where people are, being developed, entrepreneurial development in other countries, and you have social enterprises and commercial enterprises side by side. And I think in Ireland, we talk a lot about, is this a social enterprise? Is that a social, at the end of the day, I think they really can learn from each other. And that's something which I think would help bridge that gap. I mean, the corporate social responsibility area in a lot of large companies, they really want to help and reach out. There's a lot of people willing to help. And I certainly would be saying to anybody who sees a problem to turn that thought into an action, and to go to all the sources of support to make sure that you can actually make it happen faster and build the team around you. I mean, a one-man band is very difficult and very lonely. And I think, Sarah's talking about losing sleep. Well, if you have actually a team around you and people that are further up the learning curve that can really help you get more sleep than you might otherwise get and make the thing happen faster. And I think that bridging between, which is why I think, in Enterprise Ireland, we're sponsors to Enactus. We are involved with a number of social enterprises, and then through Social Entrepreneurs Ireland, I'm involved heavily. And I think I think there is a much greater level of willingness for commercial companies to engage, to do their bit, and the job that has been done on raising the awareness of social enterprises is fantastic, but we've a long way to go.
Thank you, Julie. And I suppose whether you're for profit or whether you're a social enterprise or a private enterprise, the same is true for all, that you're limited by your ability to execute and by your ambition. And great to see that those supports are there in place for any social enterprise with the ability to scale. Kerstin, just to come to you on another question from our audience, how might the burden of debt added to social enterprise from COVID shutdowns be best handled to avoid long-term damage? So I suppose in terms of a broad social response to that.
Thank you, Sonia. Very important question in order to support the sustainability of social enterprises. I think it is important that social enterprises get unbureaucratic access to support measures. If you think, for instance, of the 400 million support package by the European Investment Fund and the European Commission to help micro and businesses and social enterprises, that will obviously enable banks to buffer against the risk for a newly provided credit and to loosen lending criteria and so on. So to provide unbureaucratic access to these measures and the respective advice to social enterprises, I would argue is key. But I would also come back to what I said earlier, and Liam talked about that many of the working practices will change as a result of the impact of COVID-19 and accelerating digitization. And I do think that in addition to that, it is important that social enterprises, like other enterprises, get access to re- and upskilling opportunities at no cost And the July stimulus package by the government has made available postgraduate programs and modules in key skill areas to support that, for instance. So I do think there are a range of measures, and I would also include potentially debt write-off, in order to rescue key strategic social enterprises, as and not to disrupt all the work that is being done on social inclusion, on lifting the education standard about the most vulnerable, etc., etc. So I think the government, the banks, the education institutions all have a responsibility in that space.
Thanks, Kerstin. And time is against us on this first panel. Thank you so much to all the panelists for taking part in today's event. Without our social enterprises, our society would not be what it is today, and you all very much play a role in that. Thank you for your time. I would now like to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Briga Hines. Dr. Briga will be talking to us today about supporting social enterprises for the future, future-proofing the wonderful businesses that we have and making sure that they're fit for purpose. You are very welcome, Dr. Briga.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be part of this event, Business But Better, where we can debate, discuss, and generate ideas for advancing the social enterprise sector in Ireland. For the next 10 minutes or so, I will talk about supporting social enterprises for the future. And when we talk about the future, it's a very elusive concept at the moment. And we hear terms such as the new normal, next phase of COVID, all bringing uncertainty, unpredictability, and a lot of chaos for social enterprises to operate within. And within this landscape, they need to endeavour to look at developing their markets, generating new ideas, creating new revenue streams and resources, and doing that with great uncertainty. So in that context, and with the emerging growth of social enterprise sector in Ireland, it's probably very timely for us to reflect on what do we mean by supports for social enterprises? Should we look at reconfiguring what's already there? How are they developed? How are they offered? And what do they offer to social enterprises to address their needs, to future fit them for the new normal? So in putting together some ideas for future supports, I'm going to refer to the findings and be guided by findings from a multi-stakeholder study that we undertook with a number of groups in social enterprises. We looked at commercial organisations and government agencies involved in supporting social enterprises, with the view to identifying where's the future for social enterprises, what are the opportunities and challenges they'll encounter, and how can we support them in navigating these journeys. So based on these findings, we identified 3 themes which are areas of operations for the social enterprises. And we felt that we'd develop a number of supports under those 3 themes. And the 3 themes are called the 3 Ps: perceptual, physical, and performance related. Those 3 areas are interconnected and involve multi-stakeholders. And the provision of supports in one area will greatly enhance the development of other areas. But equally, the absence of supports in one area will hinder the progress in the social enterprise sector in the other areas. So now I will briefly go through a number of suggestions for supports in each of those areas and provide the rationale as to why we feel these supports are relevant. So the first area is about perception. And perception is our reality. It frames our decisions. It frames and informs and guides our behaviours, our actions, ideas, and attitudes. And therefore, it was very revealing in the study to identify the perceptions of both the social enterprises, the corporate, commercial organisations, and government agencies as to what social enterprises are about and what they can do and their potential. It was interesting to see we had variations between and within the social enterprises and the other organisations we interviewed. Some very brief ideas about what was emerging from the social enterprise sector was that they had multiple identities and often forced upon them for grant applications or for funding applications. They were very much felt that they were pigeonholed and stereotyped into profit or non-profit, into commercial or community groups, really without an understanding of what they can offer to the other organisations. And this impacted upon their confidence and their ability to position and pitch their business. From the commercial operations, we found that very little knowledge existed really on what social enterprises did and where they could contribute to their organisations. Most of the perceptions were based on knowledge from corporate social responsibility activity, which was the home for dealing with social enterprises. And very much responses indicated that commercial organisations dealt with social enterprises through contributing to funding, giving a once-off or transactional basis of engagement and collaboration. And the perceptions of the agencies were very much viewed and influenced by the remit of the organisation. So very much from that, we find that there is a great need to have a common language, narratives, and terminology to bridge the divide that is there in these organisations. It's not about just having a new definition or a different definition. It's about having an understanding and language that we can use to create common conversations amongst those multi-stakeholders to allow social enterprises to increase their market share and do businesses. It's also, we need to build the support, the confidence of social entrepreneurs to be able to say, yes, we can very legitimately offer products and services to commercial enterprises on par with the non-traditional social enterprises. Then moving on to the second area, we look at the whole area of the physical. And this dealt with, well, looking at social enterprises, if they want to grow their business, want to develop new ideas, new markets, what are the issues and challenges they encounter in doing so? And equally, if commercial enterprises wanted to do business with social enterprises, what are the challenges they encounter? And is there a gap between both? And then we also looked at what role support agencies could do in bridging or creating linkages between both the commercial and the social enterprises. So we divided then our support recommendations into two broad categories. One is called reaching out and the other is reaching in. And the reaching in refers to how social enterprises need to be given more confidence, they need to upskill in understanding what commercial enterprises want, how they pitch their business to them, how they develop a business proposition in order to get heard and considered by commercial enterprises. The reaching out then is about how we create better and more informed awareness and understanding up to the commercial market about what social enterprises can do, how they can add value to the bottom line of the business beyond the social impact, which is critical. Therefore, in that area, we felt there are a number of initiatives that are worth consideration. First one is a social enterprise peer networking group. But this has to be a focused, targeted group. It has to have an agenda and a purpose that is outcome and measurable. It's not just about talking, but it's about how can we create business opportunities between social enterprises. Because if we get social enterprises to do business with each other, it benefits them all, it benefits social impact. But together they can then develop a range of complementary services and products that allows them to better position themselves in a stronger front to the commercial organisations and broaden their market base in that way. Another area linked to that is the whole notion of clustering and how we can adopt traditional clustering models which have been effective to the social enterprise sector. And there's work ongoing on that at the EU level. And that is seen as an opportunity to build expertise, build knowledge, gain economies of scale, of knowledge, of resource and technology that elevates the social enterprise sector in Ireland. Linked with that as well, and this whole area of how we generate better business opportunities between commercial and social, is the development of collaborative business models or frameworks which act as guiding principles for both the commercial organisations and the social enterprises to do work with each other. Therefore, it provides a map that both can follow. It allows us and them to understand each other's languages, and we incorporate language that is common to both. This then can help further deepen collaboration and business engagement. Linked with that then is developing more workshops and seminars, bringing together both commercials and social enterprise with focus, that there will potential for doing business with each other. And that kind of a brokering service or kind of a bridging service is something that needs to be looked at in terms of how we all can play parts, but also how support agencies can be involved in doing this. And then moving into the last theme is the performance. Social enterprises need to grow and scale. In order to do that, they need to rely less on government funding and create revenue sources. Equally, commercial enterprises look to the bottom line when they're doing business with any partners. Therefore, any kind of performance-related or any kind of collaboration between social enterprise and commercial enterprises have to be measurable, have to have outputs, and have to have a very clear timeline of activities. It also needs to look at how we can make these relationships sustainable. So if social enterprises do business with a commercial operation, it's not a once-off transactional, but they become part of the organisation. For that, we need to develop a lot more commonality again on the language, about KPIs, how we get social enterprises, help them in impact articulation, building identities and branding the social enterprise sector. And with that, we need to develop a range of skills and competencies for social entrepreneurs. And these reside around the whole area of strategies for scaling, strategies for growing the social enterprise. We also need to look at competency development in the whole area of online and digital, and looking at how online is a means of disseminating and branding and marketing, but is it a way too of refocusing and remodeling our business offering? And this is very much so the case when we look at the whole changes that has happened over the last few months in the whole area of online and virtual world of doing business. Marketing, sales and branding are other areas that are competency development requirements of social enterprises, because that again will help them elevate and their brand and position themselves in a much more commercial way to the large organisations. And other areas is about impact articulation, governance, and then the whole area of tendering and procurement are all very important skills areas that allow us to elevate social enterprise sector to the next level to do businesses and grow their market base. So in summary, I've given you very much a snapshot of some of the suggestions we've put forward based on the evidence from our multi-stakeholder study. But to conclude, we must adopt a collaborative and a multi-stakeholder approach to providing supports for social enterprises. Social entrepreneurs, commercial organisations, government agencies, public sector organisations, and education institutions all have a role, a responsibility, and can contribute to developing these supports. The supports need to be developed both at the social entrepreneur level, and that is critical, separate from the social enterprise. They need to be targeted to suit the different stages of the social enterprise startup, development, scaling, and growth. And it is when we get much more of this embedded business-focused collaboration with measurable, meaningful outputs, then that we get to see more of the social in the business and commercial, and more of the business in the social. And when working together, have a greater social impact, which is something we all need to strive more for. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to some virtual conversations later on.
Thank you, Dr. Briga, for that very clear framework for future-proofing social enterprise in Ireland. And for more information, head on over to the Social Impact Ireland website. I would now like to introduce our second panel discussion, The Challenges of Delivering. And we get deep into the trenches with some of Ireland's brightest social entrepreneurs. Jessica Bonenfant from the Greywood Arts, Fiona Murphy from Irish Criminal Justice and Disability Network, and Alphonse Basogomba from Buheri Consult. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this event today. We really appreciate it because you are the heroes that we are celebrating today, the social entrepreneurs who are making such an impact in Ireland. We have some questions that we would like to put to you, not only from us, but also from the audience. So as we move through the questions, I'll be letting you know which is which. But first, Jessica, I'd love to come to you. At Greywood Arts, excuse me, at Greywood Arts, you facilitate an enriched cultural experience with an international reach and local impact. what are your real life challenges? I mean, this is a big operation, huge impact. What holds you back?
We grew really quickly and really organically, and that actually sounds quite positive, and it was. But within 3 years, we started as an artist residency. We initiated a number of community arts projects. We revived a local festival that had been running for about 100 years. And now we're renovating a derelict coach house into an art center that'll have art studios and event space and classrooms for arts education. And that's a lot in 3 years. And what we kind of came up against, and me personally, really was overwhelm, total overwhelm. And that's kind of what led me to the ISBC at the time. And what I really was helped to figure out was that we needed to have a clear strategy. We kind of had a really good sense of our impact, but there was still like clarification that could happen there. But having a strategy that acts as a bit of a rudder and you can kind of go back to it. And so now the challenges that pop up are more anticipated. Like we know we need more staff, and what Julie was saying earlier really resonated, that there are supports out there. That's a next step for us, because I'm kind of one person full-time. We've had some really good interns. We have fantastic volunteers, but finding enough hours in the day is definitely a challenge at times for us.
And so you speak about impact, and I know in social enterprise, it's the impact that keeps you going. So where are you seeing the impacts of the work that you do?
Oh, it's across the board, really. Like we have artists that come from all over the world and they stay with us and they really interact with their local community. A really recent example is we have Lewis Barfoot, who's a singer-songwriter, an actress staying at the moment, and she met a local woman who'd participated in an intergenerational project we did, and they got talking about carrageen moss. So the woman from the village came to drop her a recipe, and when we were talking, we talked about, it was an intergenerational dance performance, and the woman's in her 60s, and she said, "Oh, Jess, I was fine doing this performance with all these young people until I found out my daughter was coming. And then I got really nervous." She's like, "I thought she was going to have me committed." And I know. She said, "Mom, I'm so proud of you." And her face lit up. And I think the work that we do brings so much confidence, whether you want to become some kind of arts practitioner or not. It helps you know yourself. It helps you build empathy, really. And that is what this world needs right now, definitely. So that's just a really kind of interconnected, wonderful way that came up really just last week that made me go, okay, we're doing something good.
Beautiful, particularly when people are so disenfranchised and lonely now. And Alphonse, to come to you, I don't know if we've lost Fiona, but I can't see her on my screen. Alphonse, you know, as I said earlier, I founded 2 social enterprises myself. I know how hard it is to keep pushing that rock up the hill, and it is a lonely station. What keeps you going?
Right. Thank you, Sonia. And I want to take as well Ayman and Pauline and Kasia, because if it was not for them, I would not be here today. So, as you know, and other people said as well, social enterprise start in passion first. Okay, so it's a passion, not just a passion, but it's passion about something bigger than your persona. It's something about when you think about any issue in society you want to solve or to find a solution about it. So it's something which is bigger than you. Now, to do that, it can be very overwhelming. Sometimes people look at that and say that, oh, there's no point I can start that because I want to get nowhere. So when you meet people like Ayman and Pauline and Kerstin, who can train you and who can show you how actually you can transform your passion in something you can do, something self-sustaining, and something actually which not only can resolve the problem, but can even if give you a mean of going back and growing that enterprise as well. It's something which is very good. So when you ask me what makes you keep doing that, passion is not something you can drop. A passion, you can walk around it, you can use it, or it can consume you. So one day you can wake up and you can be successful. The next day you can start, but when you wake up in the morning, you find some difficulties, you can do it. But you're going to be a little bit sad, disappointed, you're going to sleep, but the next day you're going to start again, because it's like to wash your face. You never stop that. So if you don't do that today very, very well, tomorrow you're going to start a new way and try to find a new strategy to do it. So the passion won't go away, and always you keep trying to transform that issues you see in the society. So that's what keep you going every day. It's not like another business where today we are selling potatoes and there's no potatoes tomorrow you start to sell something else. That's something, it's consume you, so you have to deal with that.
I mean, I love that, and it really resonates with me. I understand exactly what you're saying, and the way you speak about it, the passion is there, that's a given, and nothing happens without that. But then to overlay on that a structural framework that organisations like Social Impact Ireland can support with, that takes away a little bit of that overwhelm and makes it sort of divides it into manageable chunks. So yeah, I really hear where you're coming from there. I'm going to ask a lovely audience question came in, which is really simple, and I'm going to ask both of you. What would be the one critical piece of advice that you would give somebody starting a social enterprise? So Jessica, I'm going to ask you that.
I would say to measure your impact from the start. Some things are definitely easier to measure than others. If there's numbers and figures, it's much harder to know how much a person has benefited from participating in a creative endeavor. And that data, having that at your fingertips is just going to help you no matter what you're doing. If it's talking about why what you do is important, if it's going for funding, it's something I wish we were better at the start. And I think having a system to record it makes it much easier to keep up with it. So that is something I would highly advise.
It's funny because I remember when I started Dress for Success at the very, very early days, and we were delivering an event for our very first corporate funder. And a question came from the audience, an internal audience of their employees, and they asked, how many women have you actually served? And at the time, we had only served 7 women. And it was such a paltry number that I couldn't bring myself to say it, because we'd literally just opened our doors. So I said, well, we're at the very early stages, but we're experiencing exponential growth. And it was like literally from 0 to 7 was exponential growth in anybody's language, And so, Alphonse, in terms of the advice that you would give to somebody starting a social enterprise?
Well, I think that the first things I tell people is that it's not enough to think that you can do something and that you have a kind of solution you want to bring to people. You have to talk to other people. And if you are lucky to know somebody else who's involved in kind of social enterprise, talk to them. Because one of the things which has helped me to shape what I was doing, it's when we were doing the training. First of all, even if how I knew that Ayman and Buheri Consult were providing that training was something which is phenomenal, because I didn't think that somebody can do that for free. They did that for me for free. So I was not the only one. But what I'm saying is that when in that group where we were, because each of us have to say what's your idea, what you want to do. And you didn't know those people, but they were saying that because they didn't know exactly what you were trying to do. So what was good was that when you talk to them, so they ask you some questions, and sometimes because in the beginning with your passion, you talk to people who think alike, who are your friend, who know what you're talking about. So when you go out, you test that other people don't know that. That's how you start to understand how actually you are delivering the message, And I think that when I tell people is that talk to other people, tell them what you want to do. you know. And if they say that you are crazy, or that's that's impossible, whatever, just keep sharpening the way you say your ideas, and see if they can understand. Because if around you, your small network, if they don't understand what you want to do, forget about to go out. Because out you're gonna find people who read not only they maybe not understand what you want to do, but they may challenge you as well. So you have to be ready to do that. So that's the beginning. And then after that, if you can find somebody who have done something similar that like the one you are trying to do, then try to be a body with them so that it can help you. They can tell you what to do. I think that is the best way the best advice I can tell people.
Wise words. Fiona, welcome back. We lost you for a little minute there. It wasn't the same without you. So I've been asking the guys actually, and I'll stick on this theme and come back to you then with another question. It's a question from our audience actually. So what is the critical piece of advice that you would give to somebody starting a social enterprise?
For me, and I think it work across the board, is to engage closely with your stakeholders and get their feedback. That's how we kind of started out, and before we ever even registered as a company for Guarantee, we approached another criminal justice agency organisation, that represents criminal justice agencies, and we collaborated with them, and we held a seminar to put this on the agenda, neurodiversity in criminal justice, or disability and access to justice. So we collaborated with the Association for Criminal Justice Research and Development, and we co-hosted a seminar back in 2016, and it was kind of the first time that this kind of issue was discussed in a public forum. And it was attended by not just criminal justice agencies, but also some health experts like psychologists, psychiatry, speech and language, OT, and community organisations that work on the ground, say with ex-offenders or juvenile justice or youth justice. And the feedback from that is what encouraged us to move forward. And from that day on, we go back and consult with those organisations to make sure we're going in the right direction, and that we're accommodating everybody. I mean, what we're trying to do is provide a platform whereby both disability organisations and criminal justice agencies can interact rather than operating in silos, so that the communication is a little bit more cohesive. So for me, I think engaging closely with your stakeholders, and they're also, you know, a great resource for information and research and knowing what's happening down on the ground. So that would be my advice.
Fantastic. And I think as a social entrepreneur, you have an opportunity to create your own story around your mission, and it's really important to have clarity around that. We have another question in from our audience, and thank you hugely to our audience who are tuned in live with us today. And if you're not live, you're watching afterwards, you're also very welcome. We have a question which is, what was the breakthrough moment on your journey? And I suspect that that is from a social entrepreneur who perhaps is in the early days of the struggle to get things off the ground. Jessica, do you remember a moment where you felt you finally were getting somewhere?
I think maybe our first significant funding application, it was with Cork County Council Arts Office, and there's a community arts fund, and we had applied, and one of those rare moments where you get exactly what you asked for. We got the full pot of money. We're a brand new organization, and they gave us about 13,000 to really do 4 community projects, and we were like, oh wow, okay, they believe in us. And then actually being able to deliver really well and have good feedback on that, it was like, we're doing something worthwhile that people are responding to across the board, from funders to local residents to the artists that we bring in, and it's working. And it felt like, okay, this was the springboard that we needed to gain credibility in the community, and just that kind of success felt really good, and it just kind of kept us going more towards the community arts direction. Yeah.
A lovely validation. Alphonse, is there a moment in your journey that sticks out?
Yes, I think that, okay, as I said, the passion, you have to have the passion first of all. So for me, I think that started when I was young. I was maybe unfortunate to come from a place where discrimination and denying the human rights to somebody else have created some such kind of problem in the country, in the society. So since I was young, I could feel that this was something bad. So I was trying to figure out how I can make people interact, because I have seen as well that while people live side by side without talking, without interacting, it's like a ticking bomb. At any time, something can happen and there can be an explosion. While in other places, when people interact, when they know each other, it's very, very hard to get this kind of conflict between them, because they talk. So what happens is that for a long time, I have been organizing this kind of place where people from different backgrounds, they can meet, they can share, they can talk, they can discuss, okay? And I was fortunate that when I started, I get a state fund. They were funding me to organize my activities. But with since 2008, with the economy going down, it was hard. It was hard to get that anymore. But the problem was still there, and I want to keep organizing people around. So I tried to do that, but at a certain time I said that was impossible. As I said, because there was a passion, I did drop it. I was trying to find out how to do it, how to go around. And once, as people say, when you try to find something, finally find it. So I was trying to figure out how I can do it, Then one day on internet, I saw an advertisement from 𝐒𝐡𝐞 𝐅𝐮𝐭𝐮𝐫𝐞 with that organization, which was brightest. I couldn't understand that somebody can do that for free. And I called them and they said that was free. And they said that no. I mean, I made them and they said, that, are you sure that you won't ask me something? Because I have nothing to give. They said, no, there's nothing. So what happened is that when I went there, I was trying to see the way I can make my organization a kind of like a social enterprise, where I can do by the services I do, I love, my passion, when I can sell that, and the money I'm going to get from people, I'm going to invest that to work in community as well. Because my area is diversity and inclusion, and I know that it doesn't matter if you have it in one place, people who are well integrated. If you have another place when something is not working well, it's the same. So I was trying to find a way I can do that across the board. So what happens that then when I met Ayman and Colin and Cassia, then we start talking about that. And during the training, that's the place I start to see that actually I can do that. That can happen. Because before, why I went there, I was trying to get how they can teach me to apply for fund, okay? But then I said that, you know what? I don't think that's the best way to do it. I think that if I have to do something, it has to be self-sustaining. If people like it, then they're going to give some support, financial support around that. And if they don't, then have to find a way of showing them the goodness of it. If it's in private.
And I think that self-sustaining piece, sorry to cut across you, Alphonse, is really, really important, and no better validation for the work that Social Impact Ireland do. Once again, time is against us. We could talk all day. I would like to thank the three of you for joining us today. It's so wonderful to hear your stories. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we are drawing closer and closer to the end of our event. I would like to give the floor over to Pauline Gannon, the Director of Social Purpose and Impact for Social Impact Ireland, who's going to deliver the closing remarks.
Sonia, thank you for that. What a fabulous event we've just had. Like we've heard today from people right across the sector. We've had policy, corporate, community, research, along with those that implement and those that create social impact. One of the things I think you'll agree is clear from today is that social enterprise reflects true diversity and broad reach across all sectors and communities. Social entrepreneurship generates social impact through entrepreneurial support approach. It helps to boost a country's economy and as well as that, it boosts its social fabric. And I think we've really seen that today. Like, it's vital to economic growth and inclusion, especially during these turbulent times. Decades have gone into the impact that's created through social enterprise as a business model, and strengthening that impact in communities and societies across the world. And there's a real possibility now during these really fragile times that a lot of that work can become undone. As we focus on moving through COVID, and as we start to think about rebuilding our economy post-COVID, I think it's really important, probably more important than ever, that we support and strengthen social enterprise by putting true value on the impact that it creates. So how do we do that? And I hope that we get a glimpse of how we do that from the event today. Today, we had the pleasure of listening and learning from our speakers and our participants. But we also gained insight into the work that's been done, into the thinking behind some of the important topics in this area. And for me, what we've really seen today goes to the heart of what Social Impact Ireland is all about, and that's collaboration. Ireland is doing amazing work in the social enterprise space, and truly amazing work. And we've seen some incredible projects and valuable impact that they create. So how do we build on that? Like, what's next? How do we take social enterprise sector in Ireland to, well, the next level? How do we grow it? How do we support it? What is it that we need to do? From everything that we've heard today, what are you going to take away as an action or a next step so that you can play your part in building on the social enterprise sector that already exists in Ireland and strengthening it? I think it's through collaboration. I think that if we work together, if we connect, that what we can do is collaborate with each other. If we work together, if we support each other, that's when we separate and elevate social enterprise sector. That's when we embrace diversity, inclusion, and we build a social economy, one that benefits us all. So for me, I think that's my conclusion from today, from sitting here and listening to all the speakers, all the participants, from hearing the messages that have come out, the thoughts, the thinking, the research, the experience on the ground. I'm here today to ask you, actually, I'm here today to thank you all for being here, but I'm here for more than that. I'm here to ask you to join us, to join not just Social Impact Ireland, but everybody that has come together today through connection and collaboration, so that we can all work together to build a positive, impactful future for social enterprise, fully supporting the wonderful people who have chosen a business model that puts impact at the heart of all that they do. And I think, out of everything that we've seen and heard today, that if we collaborate and connect with each other, I think it opens up a whole host of opportunities in this sector. And on that note, I'm going to thank everybody who made today happen. There is amazing work that goes behind an event like this. There's a massive learning curve. I think at times, that learning curve during COVID, moving everything virtual, all the different elements of it have been quite overwhelming. So it is with great pride and with great thanks that I close out today. And I ask you to just take a moment to think about what is that action, what is that next step that you can do to strengthen and support all the work that we've seen happening in Ireland, all the people that are working in this area, and how we can all collaborate and connect to create that positive, impactful future through social enterprise. Thank you all for today, and thanks to everybody who got involved.
Thank you, Pauline. From myself and all at Social Impact Ireland, we would like to thank all our guest speakers and panellists today. We really appreciate you giving your valuable time and such great insight into the world of social entrepreneurs. We'd also, of course, like to thank you, everyone that tuned in today. We really hope you enjoyed the conference. If you've been inspired to join this community in action or support, you can find all the information you need at socialimpactireland.ie. Together, we can create a better Ireland for all of us. Thank you and have a wonderful day.